This is essentially a Jew in an internment camp that just made his own tattoo.
It's less likely to accept evidence that goes against those misinformed beliefs.
This is the story of my life.
Why would the truth need a movement in the first place? Gosh, the crystal dishes.
Yeah.
The phenomenon known as the sleeper effect.
Right, even with the Jewish star above it. I mean, the seal of Solomon above it in stars.
Processing information, consumers may save time and energy by using a frequency heuristic.
He presents himself just like all these other guys as legitimate.
It is a guy. I'm convinced it's fucking training. There is some truth in the secret cult part, but it's not what you think.
Well, there's a club, but you ain't in it.
All right, guys. Well, let's get into it. So now I want to get into cognitive dissonance first, and then we'll talk about counties actually going after some of these guru filings that people are doing.
Fine.
So
I'm sorry, but I'm not rooting for this kid. I'm not rooting for the good guys. I'm rooting for the bad guys, because the more this comes out as fraud, the more people get in trouble for it, the more they'll start saying, "Oh, Clint's not such an asshole anymore. After all, he's not just coming out against people for no reason. No, there's a very good reason, and that's exactly what you're talking about."
Everyone in the alternative space literally says the same thing verbatim, and we're just laughing how successfully these people pulled it off. I mean, how do they get it to work so well? We're going to get into the exact mental minutia and mechanisms that they use to accomplish this.
My friend Greg will call me up. We haven't spoken for months, or he'll come over and we'll drink some beers and talk about shit. And somehow we all hey, did you see this? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Why are we getting these recommendations for certain videos? You'd think they wouldn't be recommending them, but wait a minute. Why is this algorithm from YouTube or whatever at the same time censoring and removing my movie? It's sending me things as a recommended viewing that are completely wacko and out of, half of it's like, for instance, this song that came out, this sort of country song that came out about the rich men from Richmond, right? Total psyop. I mean, if you don't recognize that it went global in like a matter of seconds. It was professionally produced by the guy. The guy actually talked about professionally producing it. I mean, total setup. And this guy pretending I just did this. I'm out in the woods, I recorded this beautiful thing. No, they professionally recorded in a recording studio before they released all this shit. Total psyop. These things you don't realize are, what's the purpose of that, you say? Why would that be something that, well, because it makes you feel like something is being done. It's just like going to a protest. You feel sort of good after a protest. You got your, you have a platform all of a sudden, even a little tiny platform that really means nothing because it's in a free speech zone. You need a permit to even be there. But okay, you got to protest, right? And you actually makes you feel good. Well, that's a sense of cognitive dissonance, that you've actually done something. I'll tell you how else this applies. Because, you start to realize the truth movement is all about creating cognitive dissonance, right? But what is cognitive? It's when you have two conflicting things in your head, right? Two ideas, left and right, completely different, and yet you gotta believe one of them, right? One of them even though it goes against the right answer, you lean towards the wrong answer. Because why? Well, it makes you feel good. The truth that hurts. The truth is not ever pleasant. The truth is a spiritual awakening. The spiritual awakening is never pleasant because you see what's actually happening. You don't want to see that. You want to live in the matrix. You want to live in the dream. But that's not where truth lies. And so you're in this state. You want to believe so bad that I can be a state national. I want to believe so bad that there's this group of. Okay, if there's one foundational lesson that has to be known for everything that we talk about, whether you're getting a trust and it's being written up by Brandon, and there's one thing about that you've got to know and you got to understand so that you don't have this dissonance. You don't think you've done something when you haven't, or you don't believe in something that isn't true. The foundation of everything, and what really confuses people, I think, is the difference between an action and writing something in words. Okay, just because let's say Brandon makes a trust. He says, I don't got anybody else, so I'm going to leave everything to, I'm going to leave my estate to, I'm going to name my beneficiary as Clint, right? So I'm sitting here, and now I have a duty, okay? But I don't have an obligation. It's my action when that is an offer to me that will decide whether I'm the beneficiary. I'm not the beneficiary of anything unless I agree to it. And I act the part. But under no circumstances, how many times do you see in a movie or something, someone goes to a reading of the will not knowing what's going to happen or if they're even a beneficiary or going to get anything, right? That's because there's no requirement for me to, you got a crappy old house you leave me, more as a practical joke than anything. I don't have to accept that. A trust does not set anything in stone. It's an evidentiary. And when you do paperwork, as they call it, when you send an affidavit, it's not real. And the worst part, the real cognitive dissonance comes here. I'm sending to government, which is basically a corporation that has employees, and they call those employees citizenships, right? Little vessels that we use in commerce. That's what they have control of. And because we do everything through that person, they control us. So what we do is we send an affidavit or whatever they're telling you to do. Send it to this, send it to the Secretary of State, send it to every state, send it to states you don't even live in. And you say, I'm not the person. I rescind my citizenship. I want nothing to do, whatever words you're using. Sending it to a place that can only deal with citizens and their agents, which are us. And then the next thing you do is you go out and you spend money on your credit card that's in your straw man's name. Or you go out and you use the name, you sign something, you do everything in the name that you just said you are not. Well, at the same time expecting them to say, well, okay, well, we're just going to forgive you that you're using this vessel, this commercial thing, this person, this status, but then saying you're not it, okay? Again, you cannot say something is fraud and then benefit from the fraud. You cannot have protection without subjection. You cannot have all. That is not how the system works. So all these letters you're sending, all these things, they are the epitome of what we'd call a cognitive dissonance, because you're not realizing, again, if you send a letter as Christian Clint or whatever, they're not going to be able to do anything with it because they don't own it. It's not their property. You're dealing with the person and then saying you're not the person as the agent. It's totally a confliction of mind, and it's simply because people just aren't grasping that. Again, it's your action that defines whether you're in person or not. So when you go spend, when you still have your driver's license, you still have all these things, you are acting the part while saying you're not. That is, you could call that hypocrisy even. It's just like reverse hypocrisy. So I don't know. This is the problem that we're having and it's a lack of knowledge, obviously. But mostly it's saying you're not something and then acting the part. That is absolutely a dissonance of terms and of thought.
Yeah, so actually, I think we should start off with the bogus sovereign filings first, and then we'll get into cognitive dissonance, because we need to look at what these people are doing first, and then we'll look into how do these people get tricked into. 3 parts to this. All right. Sovereign citizen filings flood Pima County. Parallel national resurgence of controversial movement. So this little header is funny. A 63-page packet arrived at Pima County Recorder's Office in January, postmarked from Texas, just like Clint said. These gurus tell you to file stuff in a different state because they know these other places will file it. I've heard a lot of people do bogus filings. They try to do in Texas, for example, bogus liens, UCC1 liens. And a lot of Texas counties won't file it. They will refuse it if they know it's a bogus lien. But anyways, we'll get into that a little bit later. From Texas, with unusual formatting, identifying the sender. Oddly hyphenated name, so there we go, the quantum cult. I've even seen other gurus copy the quantum thing ever since the 90s. Stray colons and bracketed off zip codes. Yeah, so these idiots think that if I put a zip code in a bracket, I'm no longer in the jurisdiction. I'm not in the United States.
These are what you would call, what is it called? I forgot the word for it, but style. These are styles. Right. And they're not necessarily intended. Like, I'll get letters from people, and I very much appreciate it. And I love the idea of it, where they put on a 2-cent stamp and do all the crazy lettering and stuff and put everything in brackets, which is supposed to say, I'm outside of the U.S. jurisdiction. But they seem to forget that they're using the U.S. system of mail. Right? I know I can understand the idea that, okay, there's the idea of the original United States versus the new imposter United States, United States of America versus United States, which I discovered now it just isn't true. And I explained why that's not true, that it's, again, just a style. And it really is a boring topic the conspiracy is so much more elaborate than the real thing. The real thing, it's an accounting thing because the United Nations writes it USA, I think, and the United States writes it US. And so there's two systems of styles that you would write it in, but it has nothing to do with, I don't know, whatever, the 13th Amendment or this or that or that. No, the states were conquered and had to redo their constitutions. The Constitution of the United States didn't change. So it didn't need to, because it became illegitimate anyway. So everything's illegitimate at this point. There is no past or future. It's all illegitimate. So, which is ironically a term that applies to every country. There's always a de facto and a de jure, right? There's always what's lawful and what's not. That's because governments can do lawful things, but everything that's commercial is de jure. It's not part of the purview of a legitimate governance, right? So that's all contract, and that's why the law of contract makes the law. So again, just this absolute. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, let's continue. We got a lot to read through. This might be a long episode, but oh my gosh, this is a goldmine information. So, bracket off zip codes. Okay, we went through that. The text jumbled punctuation marks, there we go, again, the quantum stuff, interwoven with rambling, were part of a conspiracy-laden code designed to circumvent the U.S. government. This is what the people say, I hereby asservative repudiate
my citizenship.
If any ever existed with the legal fiction known as the United States Government Corporation, USA Inc., and any and all subsidiary corporations known as state, counties, and unknown under his control, end quote, the sender wrote.
So the packet here's a perfect example. United States in quotes, right? Which is correct. And then they say USA Inc. But wait a minute. You just specifically pointed out that it's United States in all capital letters, and then you say USA. Wait a minute. It can't be both, because according to your theory, United States of America and the United States are two different things, right?
Right.
And this is the problem. They wouldn't write it like this if they didn't believe that.
And if this was the name of the corporation, it would be in all caps.
Well, and also, if in style, You have to have everything perfectly correct, especially if you're a secure party
Yeah.
creditor, which is corporation. If you get anything wrong, if you say it's USA Inc. and it's actually USA Inc. all capital letters, the court will throw it out. This is why you don't want to mess with this unless you have a lawyer. That's your that's what lawyers specialize in, is that international trade. The secured party creditor thing. I mean, you, talk about cognitive dissonance, right? There's no point in being a creditor unless you have debtors. There's no point in being a king or a sovereign unless you have subjects, right? So all these arguments rely on this belief, and mind you, I heard this stuff and I was like gung ho about it, patriotic, all that, not understanding that all of this is dissonant when you really think about it. They're oxymoronic to say sovereign and citizen, or sovereign without a subject. It doesn't even make sense. This is why God is supposed to be your only sovereign. But again, it's this United States versus United. But here he's mentioning both. And if you look at that from the international perspective, which is what you should be looking at as, well, then, yeah, those are the two styles used, one by international law and one by domestic. That's it. Nothing more, nothing grandiose, just a way that you're supposed to style your writing, just so it's internationally and nationally taken correctly. That's it. Nothing else. It's such a boring little BS thing that it means nothing, and yet it's this grand conspiracy. And like I said, I believed it. I'll admit it. I believed it. It sounds reasonable on the surface until you look it up.
Yeah, so I'll skim read this for you guys, because we're already aware of what these people think mostly. All right, so the packet was just one of recent flood of filings by so-called sovereign citizens. And here they're saying they're increasingly choosing to start the process in Pima County. In 2020, the Pima County recorder received about 50 such filings. In 2022, it received more than 1,400. All right, so... Okay, so...
resurgence in the sovereign citizen movement.
Right. Exactly. And like you said earlier, the YouTube algorithms is promoting these kind of videos. I see it on my stuff.
Let's keep in mind, sovereign and citizen, that is a cognitive dissonance right there.
It is. Exactly.
That is a perfect example. You cannot be...
It's
like being Clint, a creditor and a debtor at the same time.
Clint, see, this is where the followers will just be like, oh, well, I already know about that. It's an oxymoron. That's what they always say. It's an oxymoron. I call myself a sovereign. Okay, but...
anyway.
Right. You're calling yourself a not citizen, but yet you're still it doesn't make it...
A pile of shit by any other name is still a pile of shit.
Very well said, yeah. Exactly.
Pardon my French.
More commonly, sovereigns engaged in so-called paper terrorism tactics. Yes, that is what the FBI, the IRS, all these government bodies are calling it. We'll get into that more here in the articles, but this is paper terrorism, guys.
Totally agree.
Threatening and harassing public officials. Does that sound familiar? How many gurus have we heard about filing liens, lawsuits, by inundating them with baseless lawsuits and liens? There you go.
Since that the secured party lien, unless you redo it every 5 years, it's going to go void. Do they tell you that? No, because you've already paid them and they've moved on to their next scam.
Exactly. I mean, there's so much intricacies with UCC, like Clint's saying. Look, the only time I see it as useful is if we're doing equity stripping with an actual holding company, right? That's the only application when we're doing it for equity stripping purposes in a legitimate way. Other than that, there's no use for UCC for us.
Yeah, it's an international. It basically is to put a lien on a property that is the product of a sale. So if I'm buying lumber from a company, there's a lien put on it to deliver, and once the deal's over, the lien's gone. But you're like that judge ruled against me because I'm full of crap and don't know the legal system, and therefore I'm going to put a lien on his property. And dude, I understand the appeal and the logic even behind that, but it's not reasonable. It's logical. Reason is a completely different thing, right? We reason it out, though. Yeah, that's not what this is for, and therefore it's fraud and felonious.
You can only no. We're talking about equity stripping. You can only do it when you have a legitimate mortgage under a holding company.
Well, okay, and let's be clear. If you were to loan some money to a family member, you could become a secured party creditor and call your cousin or your aunt or your mother, your brother, whatever, or your son or daughter a debtor, right? And you could set it up that way. Or, like my family did, you trust and you make a little ledger, and as I pay you off $100 a month because you're my good great grandmother, why would you go through the trouble of doing all that just for that? But again, if you're going to make loans, here's my conclusion, Brandon. What are secured party creditors? The one thing that you rail against the most, what are they? They're frickin' bankers. What is a creditor? It's a frickin' banker. You're actually becoming that which you hate by becoming a secure party creditor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the only application I find useful, again, is for equity stripping when you have a home, or you can even use it on cars, businesses.
Collecting on a mortgage. Collecting on a pledge.
It's a tool for asset protection, but you have to follow the rules. You have to have the right circumstances. It is an offensive thing to do for lawsuit protection. But this is not what these people are talking about. They don't even know about this.
Well, the other difference is that the companies agree. I mean, this is a business transaction. I'm putting my property up as a collateral to fill a deal. But these guys are saying, behind their backs, go and put a lien on a judge for no apparent reason. Pledge your soul to the UCC, to the Unitroid principle. Yeah, to Rome, basically.
Yeah, you look up UCC and all these videos from, what is it called? So Bad Wolf pulls up.
Yes.
That guy's called. Yes. What a fool.
Wow. And people,
they love it, though.
It's incredible.
All right, so until 2020, most submissions received by Pima County Recorder's Office came from within Arizona. But as the office gained national attention for being friendly to sovereign filings, there you go. That's what you talk about all the time, Clint. It began receiving packets from nearly every state. Every state. The majority coming from California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, and Washington. A months-long review of thousands of county documents found. All right, so let's scroll down.
Again, it's real simple. These guys, if you send it to the right office, to court clerks in certain counties and states, then they will file it, and they're required to file it without looking, even though they know it's fraud, they have to file it. That's not their job. Their job is to strictly file whatever they receive, regardless of whether it's correct or incorrect, or a felony or not. So, yeah, that is why they got this flood, probably. I'm assuming. And if I called the office, I bet you that's what they'd say. Yeah, they're required to file.
Not anymore. We'll get into that. Whether they act independently or identify with one of the movement's many loose-knit groups, there's a brand for everyone nowadays. Sovereign citizens typically share the same core conviction that the United States was subverted by an illegitimate government, there you go again, more than 100 years ago, and its laws have no real authority over them.
I mean, yes and no.
Right. I mean, I don't think people realize how large like you talk about all the time, the indentured slavery that they're in. They can't wrap their minds around it.
Yeah, you don't know you're in a human trafficking thing, that it's called citizenship. You don't know that you're being trafficked. That to use means, that to employ something is to use something as a labor. You just don't know that you're part of this system of it's debt slavery, but in this case, the debt isn't monetary; it's performance. You're required to perform according to your social contract, as they say, the indenture, the birth into the being a natural born, etc. And they think nativity is a good word. Go look up nativity.
It sounds biblical,
Exactly.
All right. Finally, documents of county officials and the Secretary of State is a fundamental part of how sovereign citizens operate. But it can be difficult for officials to know how best to handle the resultant deluge of paperwork. On one hand, public officials are required to process and maintain public documents. On the other, torrents of sovereign filings can overtax government systems and cause tangible harm to targets of groundless liens and lawsuits. Our office is here to serve all Arizonians. However, accepting and managing paper that does not adhere to existing legal standards remains a challenge, not just for our office, but for recorders' offices across the state. All right, let's keep going. Nearly every county in the state told AZCIR it accepts sovereign citizen documents, but most receive fewer than a dozen such packets a year. Pima County, a clear exception, receiving about 600 in the first quarter of 2023 alone. Accepting here he goes, guys. Let's emphasize on this. Accepting a document does not make it legal. I'm going to say it again. Accepting a document does not make it legal, according to a Pima County recorder, but rather ensures it's available to the public in perpetuity. So notice that, it's hilarious to me, Clint, that these people say that they are private citizens, but yet they do everything they can to make these things public as possible. Oh, this is funny. You can come in here and record your grandma's chocolate chip cookie recipe if you want. And it would not make it a legal document, she said, but it would make it a public document.
Right.
So yeah, if you want to display your stupidity for the public to see.
This actually goes, but if you really boil down the story of the crucifixion of Christ, the cross is actually a pole, like a telephone pole. What do you do on telephone poles? You put up public notices. All you're doing is putting up what is essentially a public notice. Now, the law does not allow you to lie to the public when you're making a public notice. You're doing something that's illegal and making it a public notice. Again, that's kind of, if I'm an organized criminal, am I going to say I'm going to rob this bank on Tuesday? Right? You're posting a felony. I mean, and I find that a bit amusing, and that's why I say, like, okay, well, you've committed a crime, and maybe you should, be punished for it simply because it's going to maybe hopefully start preventing other people from following suit. And that is really why I'm here, is to help people not, just as the Bible says, don't do this. Stop doing this. Stop giving credit to something that isn't real. Stop participating in that which is fiction, right? Stop giving it legitimacy. I say the same thing about the presidential vote. You don't vote, the electors do, right? Stop giving the electors legitimacy if you want to change anything. Stop voting.
I've never voted in my life. I don't understand how people fall for that one.
Well,
all right, so the county also... Exactly. The county also stopped accepting personal checks from sovereigns in 2020 after they were unable to cash a spate of them associated with what the county recorder called sovereign banks.
Clear. If they could accept the check, it would have to be a U.S. It would have to be a bank that is affiliated with the national or international banking system. It would have to have the marks, the numbers, right? It'd have to have it would have to be with your social or with your whatever. I mean, you can't. This is like government can't accept anything that's not part of it. So if you're a private bank, it's not going to accept your check, or it wouldn't be able to cash it because it's not part of their system.
It's not possible to have a private bank.
Because it's not private money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Apache County is the only government body in the state that confirmed it refuses to accept sovereign citizen documents, according to its recorder's office. So here we go. They're starting to do it.
As they should.
The office said the decision was made by the county's legal division, but County Attorney Michael Whiting declined to elaborate.
Let me just correct something I just said. You could have a private bank. Don't get me wrong. You just couldn't have a private bank that has with dollar. Like
Right.
these people, like the Liberty Dollar. I think we talked about where he was foolish enough to put the symbol of the seal of the United States on his silver coin, and he got arrested for it for impersonating a United States mint. Right, so you can have private things. I don't want to steer people wrong. It's just that you cannot do it in.
You can't do it publicly.
You can't use property of someone else to do
Right.
it. You don't have permission. You don't have.
Yeah.
You're not part of the banks. You're not a member of the Federal Reserve. You don't have the
Right.
rights that come with the banking law.
Exactly. And by the way, people think that that'll get them out of taxes doing commerce in silver. I've seen plenty of IRS cases talking about, you know what? We're just going to take the fair market value of the silver, and we're going to see that as taxable in that FMV value. So,
Yeah, now when you try to trade silver with any coin shop, they are required now
Yep.
to report it. So
They are.
why would you think it's like selling a TV? You're supposed to
Right.
actually report this. You sell your house, you report.
Yes, I've had that happen.
You're making an accounting to government of your straw man's action. Period.
Yeah.
End of story. Your account.
Yeah, it shocked me because it completely went against everything Alternative Space talks about. When I saw through this precious metal thing a few years ago, when I went to go sell my gold and silver, sure enough, like Clint says, they record the sale, they take a picture of your ID.
And they offer you nothing.
Right.
They offer you way less than market value. So
exactly. The buy and sell spread is horrible. And that's what no one talks about.
You have to find someone on the internet that's foolish enough, as you were, to buy it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's keep going. Mojave County similarly has established protocols to prevent the paperwork from overwhelming its office. After refusing to accept sovereign documents from 2020 to 2022, it currently accepts them only if they meet certain standards, such as having a direct connection to Mojave County, according to the recorder, Christy Blair. And that's how it should be. Why the hell would it make sense to record these things where you don't have domicile? Anyways, even if it was a legitimate filing, which of course none of these are, if it is a random filing that has nothing to do with Mojave County, we will return it with a letter of explanation. He's urged the county officials we don't have the power to deny sovereign filings to lobby for policy change. In the meantime, it's important for them to be trained in identifying false liens and other documents targeting businesses and people so they can at least notify the proper authorities. Okay. All right, so the false lien tactic, a mainstay of what experts describe as paper terrorism, there we go again, has been used by sovereign citizens for decades, tax protester movement since the 60s, to retaliate against public officials and private community members. Arizona revised its groundless lien statute in 1985 to provide better protections against such liens. And I think that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, there you go. If a whole statute had to be created to prevent the damages that you're causing feloniously to otherwise, I mean, you're going after people for what they do as a profession. What the hell do you do as a profession that's so great that makes you this moral judge of a judge or someone, a police officer? They're doing their job as described. That's the truth of the matter. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying what makes you so special that I shouldn't come after you?
Yeah. Whether it's false liens or patently false land patents, I mean, a lot of these things are used to harm people. And
I've even seen people who were dating try to go after and put a lien on each other.
What?
Yeah, like my ex girlfriend, she was horrible, and she took this and took my dog, and therefore I'm putting a lien on. You know,
Oh, yeah.
just to harm her, just to make, it's like a woman being talked into spending the whole estate on attorney fees and get
Yeah.
nothing in the end, right?
Right.
It's just spite is all it is.
That's hilarious. I
And
wonder
they've
what,
monetized it.
I wonder in the lien filing, I wonder what he described the collateral as. Was it her? Was it her body? Unbelievable. All right. In 2022, they're talking about this lady, Shelley. She organized these group meetings, and they talked about doing this stuff. So, anyways, think of it like a state national assembly or something like that. They used false liens to target 10 members of Sedona's government, including the city's mayor, vice mayor, council members, magistrate judge. Man, this reminds me of one particular guru that lives in Pennsylvania. I won't say his name, but man, he does stuff like this, including the city's mayor, vice mayor, council member, magistrate judge, and senior code enforcement advisor. Evans, who founded the Ultimate Light Mission Sedona, filed the liens at the Coconico County Recorder's Office, naming 5 other plaintiffs. The notices alleged. Oh,
You're just basically a follower, and you're rooting, saying, "Yeah, let's get them. Let's do something. Let's burn them at the stake. What's the difference, right? You're messing with them. Let's steal their property or let's burn their house down. I mean, putting a lien on somebody like this, that means they can't get credit. They can't. Anything can happen once a lien is put on. It really screws with people's lives, and
absolutely.
as a revenge tactic, again, without really thinking about the effects. You could root for it, but think about if that happened to you. You just go along one day, and separate from what your job is, suddenly you have a lien put against you. You can't get credit. You can't get a mortgage. You can't do anything related to this because someone has claimed that you've wronged them in a personal way, right? When in fact it was in an official way. So it's again, you can see why it's felonious, but it's also fallacious to attack someone's person, from their profession. And
Yeah.
I hate saying this, but I understand the law, and if the law would allow this, think of how things would actually be. I think of how many liens we'd all be putting on each other if this were actually a legitimate thing. There would be no law at that point, So this is for legitimate, as they call it, commercial transactions, not to get revenge.
Right, exactly. It should not be an emotional thing. It's business. But none of these people are business people, obviously. All right, so the notices allege the officials committed 391 violations of the Constitution and Bill of Rights and demanded a payment of more than $12 million. See, here we go. They're always wanting the gold pot.
The false redemption. I told you, false redemption movie.
Though Nino County Attorney William Ring informed the Recorder's Office that, quote, the purported lien is conclusively presumed to be invalid, end quote. Requests made on behalf of the public officials to invalidate the false liens failed. So this April, Sedona filed felony criminal charges against the group, labeling them as so-called sovereign citizens and accusing them of harassing public officials through acts of paper terrorism, according to court documents. Defendants knew that the liens were groundless and not authorized by any legal authority. Their sole aim in recording them was to harass plaintiffs, the criminal complaints state. These filings were nothing more than attempts to bully, harass, and intimidate these public officials. Man, how much does this remind me of some of these gurus?
Surface, you like to get those numbers.
Yeah.
But deeper than that. Put yourself, do unto others as you do to yourself, right? Or your neighbor. This is not right.
This is not
the way. This is not the way to conduct business, governance, or anything else. This is not a self-governing thing. This is spiteful.
Yes. All right. In a document filed with Coconino County Recorder's Office in May, two of Evans' co-defendants claimed they did not write or fully understand the lien. Oh, so now they're trying to play it off as their
Imagine that. Oh, I didn't understand it. Well, why'd you do it? And that's the question, aren't we? Isn't that basically the question we're asking everybody? Why are you getting involved with something you don't understand it at all? You don't know the law. You don't even know the local law on it, let alone the international or national law.
Well, Clint, I know the law because I listened to some a-hole on the internet.
Pardon me that I stand corrected.
Yeah. Mind you, these people will never step foot in the law library. So let's go. Continue. They took against public officials and that signing it was a mistake, they indicated. They had broken off contact with the group in July 2022. All right, so that's the end of this one. But it's not over yet, guys. Just wait.
Well, I'd like to know how they ended their connection. Well, right. It was a transaction you did with someone who sold you their paperwork.
Yeah.
Which again, it's illegal to copy someone's paperwork. Just because you're changing the personal information. So I'd like to know the end of the story and how they separated, why they separated, and what's that guru doing now? What's he selling now to innocent people who will find out the same thing?
Exactly. All right, so part 2. Sedona. Natural light filtered through New Age tapestries. And those things are so tacky. The books in their tapestries are just the most cringe thing I've ever seen.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Now, those like little tapestries people hang on the wall, and it's got like this like tie-dye and like Buddha stuff.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It's like really cheap, thin fabric.
Yeah.
That some a-hole sold to them for like $50.
Are you supposed to have this up? Because I see the end of the other article.
Oh, let me share the other one. Here we go. All right. So it's tapestry covering skylines at the Ultimate Light Mission. I mean, this is the most woo-woo place I've ever heard of.
Have you ever been there?
Center. What's that?
Dude, if you ever get a chance, go through there. I mean, it's one of the most bizarre places.
Oh, you bet.
Oh, absolutely. It's bizarre. The people are out there, it's a hippie kind of thing, and you can still call them that. It's a strange place, and there's a lot of. It's the UFO / crystals /
the crystal bitches.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a ton of them out here around that.
Yeah.
But nowadays they're not called hippies anymore. They're called wooks.
Oh, that's what you were saying. Okay.
Yeah. Now they're all into like music festivals and doing DMT and ketamine.
Is that some kind of Wicca kind of thing? Or?
A lot of it is associated with Wicca, yeah. Softening the afternoon sun is the woody fragrance of burning Palo Santo. Oh, I hate the smell of that stuff. It smells like, hung in the air. Inside the 2-day Wellness Wave Expo, visitors could choose from products like crystal necklaces, there you go, Clint, the crystal bitches, or stem cell activation patterns, or patches.
My sovereign paper.
It goes hand in hand, apparently, nowadays.
It's a crystal piece of paper, basically.
Yeah. One vendor offered a product she claimed could protect people from magnetic fields and 5G radiation. A lot of that stuff is BS, although I do use some stuff that actually works.
I've heard stories of them selling this stuff where they're like these secret spies that go out to cell phone towers with their crystals, and they put the crystal there, and it eliminates the radiation of the 5G. Now we're at 10G. If we're at 10G, we made the skip. What does that mean? I mean, geez.
Oh, man. I mean, I got this Faraday bag. It's actually legit. It does block the signal. It's lined with silver. So, there are legitimate EMF blocking things out there.
Sure,
but,
and if the sun sends a giant, EMF wave and everything goes down, you're going to have a cell phone that doesn't work because nothing else was covered.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You could have nothing else was in a freaking Faraday cage. Why? So your phone's not going to work. I mean, it'll work. It just won't have anything else that works. So yeah, by all means, you do your whole office in silver or some metal that's going to refrain the EM pulse or whatever you're afraid of. But
Right.
keep in mind, no one else is doing it, so all your stuff's going to be worthless.
You're still surrounded by it, yeah.
You might have some guy in Tokyo you can, shortwave or longwave radio or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Events like the Freedom Wave, hosted just 2 weeks after the Wellness Expo and billed as a must-see powerhouse presentation where the puzzle comes together. Introduced sometimes unsuspecting adherents of alternative health to conspiracy-laden ideologies like those of sovereign citizens. A resurging movement law enforcement officers once considered the greatest threat to communities in the nation. The danger really is that people are non-extreme are invited into a space that have both non-extreme and extremist content activities.
Hey, that sounds like cognitive dissonance.
Oh, they may think that they're just learning a new financial tip or technique or skill, she said of such trainings. Danger lies in the radicalization aspect. All right. The connection between Ultimate Enlightened Mission and sovereign citizen speakers is no coincidence. Court documents obtained by ACER, let's just say that for acronym, claim that Shelley Evans, there's that lady again, with the $12 million settlement she wants, who founded the community space as a member of the so-called sovereign citizen movement. She also instigated a protracted legal fight with the city of Sedona over a false multi-million-dollar lien she and others filed against public officials, a common sovereign tactic prosecutors describe as paper terrorism. All right. Her community center has also hosted groups such as Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, which promotes a controversial belief that a sheriff's authority supersedes that of the state or federal government. How many times have we heard that, especially the state national
Sheriff Mack? He is responsible for that.
That asshole.
Yeah, I'll never forget, man. Back in, I think it was 2010, we held a conference here, tried to hold a conference in Utah. And Sheriff Mack was one of the speakers, the only guy that wanted money for speaking. Such a prick. And we were both interviewed by the BBC. And they tore him a new a-hole. And then they interviewed me. And I'd like to think I won the conversation. It's up there. Someone filmed it, but they never put it on BBC because I made the host look like a kind of a fool for trying to, fallaciously attack the whole thing. And but Mac himself was he was a bumbling idiot when he was actually interviewed by someone that would actually challenge him, right? And that's the thing about having these pedestals. And you're a guru. People are listening to you without thinking, oh, maybe I should question what he's saying. That doesn't sound right. Oh, it's just cognitive dissonance. No, what he's saying sounds so good. I'm going to go with it. Even though I have that aching feeling that this is too good to be true or whatever. That's, God, I mean, it's the same frickin' recipe over and over and over.
Capel didn't speak of a spiritual awakening. He spoke of waking up to reality. A reality where the current U.S. government has been subverted. A reality where people's identities as they know them are just trusts. Oh, gosh.
Again.
Created their names by the federal government. Oh. By the way, I recently...
There again, trusts created in their name.
In their names. That doesn't make any sense.
It's right. Not your name.
I mean, think about this logically. Why the hell would the government create a trust for you? It doesn't make any sense.
Did they do that with slaves? Did they do that with their feudal tenants? What? Why would they do? I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense.
Right. A lot of these people, I don't think they realize how trusts work. I mean, most states, when you create a trust, you have to let the beneficiaries know what's going on. Did they ever reach out to you, Clint, and let you know about your secret trust?
No, don't say secret trust. Don't say that again.
Oh, it's not secret anymore. Apparently the cat's out of the bag.
Oh, okay.
And apparently we're the bad guys for questioning this whole narrative.
You know what? I'm willing to be the bad guy. I've been the bad guy for a lot of people until a year,
Yeah.
2, 3 years pass, and they say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be such a cock to you and call you all these names. You were right. Not that I was right. It's that I had the source. That's all.
Right.
Just the source. That's it. No arrogance. No nothing like that. I've got sources. I research.
Right. Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger.
Exactly.
It feels very convenient for someone to say that the laws don't apply to them, when on some level they are benefiting from the protection of those laws. Man, there we go.
Isn't that what I was just saying, right?
Yeah. They've constructed a theory that is not legally sound, but by drawing on antiquated or obsolete or dated legal concepts, that they try to give it appearance of legitimacy. All right.
Well, okay. There's the problem right there. You're trying to give something that you already know is illegitimate, and you're participating in it, saying it's legitimate. What? How can you do something in the illegitimate system that's legitimate? It doesn't make sense.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah, you're using the exact system that you supposedly hate and say is illegitimate.
I mean, geez. Talk about cognitive dissonance.
And guys, we're going to get into the mechanism of cognitive dissonance because it's so weird to look at it in a 40,000-foot view. Because, Clint and I, it's fun to pick apart what these people are doing and saying, but it's another level to look at the mental techniques that they're using. It's insane. So, as of March, she was completing a so-called status correction. Oh, geez, there we go again with the status stuff. A paperwork sovereign citizen believe begins the process of disentangling an individual from the U.S. government, who, when filed with the county recorders. What? But that's what all these gurus tell you to do. Haywood said...
We just heard from the county recorder, the clerk, that he has to file the paperwork. we just had that interview. I mean...
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Haywood said her primary focus was finishing status correction, so she would be walking outside current legal regulations, such as needing a driver's license or paying taxes. By the way, guys, there is no such thing as a status, but even if there were, the status doesn't create the tax liability. It's the person making the money that does. But anyways, she said the 4-hour presentation, oh my God, imagine sitting there for 4 hours listening to this, was meaty in terms of the content. All right, so let's skip forward. This is dumb. Oh, here we go. This is actually funny. Capel's voice became agitated as he made it clear that all the teachings had to be done in person. However, no Skype, no Zoom. He didn't want what they're doing to get out. Oh, I wonder why.
So there again, you kind of misspoke before because person and status are essentially the same word. All right, so to say it has to be done in person while saying you're not a person, not a straw man. Wait a minute. Again, how is that possible?
Right.
How can it be done in person? When you go to court, you have to, appear in person.
Exactly.
Right? When you deal with government, how do you do it? As the agent representing the person, right? You cannot communicate with government without that branch, that person, that status. If you're, I'm from Mexico, I can't just send a letter to government and say I am this or I am that. I'm now a U.S. citizen, even though I'm, a slave of Mexico. None of it makes any sense when you boil it down to the parts like this. It's amazing that we're talking about cognitive dissonance because these are all concepts that they all involve denying what it is that you're, being what it is you're denying at the same time you're denying it, and then benefiting from it afterwards against all the maxims of law. It's just
right. That's interesting you say that because that reminded me of that lady suing these people for millions of dollars. Let's say for some reason she won that settlement. Well, isn't she benefiting from the very system she says is illegitimate? I mean,
Exactly. Or, what else could happen? There could be, if it's a jury trial or if it's a judge, which would never rule against its own government,
Right.
right? Or king, right? He could say, "Well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna allow this ridiculous, thing, and but we've decided that the value of it is not $1 million; it's $1." And he said, "Yeah, here's your freaking dollar, now go the hell away. We've now settled the case. You have accepted a compensation, and therefore you can't really appeal because they decided in your favor." Right? I mean, you've actually given away your rights by accepting a decision by the court, and now you're stuck. It's like the same thing with, if I accept reparations, then I've forgiven the crime. I can't go again, and all of it is bullshit. I'm sorry. It's just, it's this false sense of redemption.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's funny because when you file a lawsuit, there's pleadings involved in that. So you're pleading to the judge who you say is illegitimate. Oh my gosh, there's so many layers. All right, so part 3. This is the last one, guys. Sedona police officer Stephen dragged a salt and pepper-haired man in his 30s out of a blue SUV, forcing him to the pavement of an Arizona roadway, blah, 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 blah. All right. No. Matthew Paul, actually, I know someone that knows this guy, funny enough, believed that he was rolled over and handcuffed. I didn't do anything. Minutes earlier, Williamson had stopped Tuckereon for driving. Yeah, Mr. T. What is that, Italian or something? I don't know what the fuck it is. For driving a fictitious license plate. Look at this. Look at this fictitious license plate right here. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see it. Can you see that?
So, look, it has the United States seal on it. Right? Even with the Jewish star above it. I mean, the seal of Solomon above it in stars. What a fool. Again, that's no different. That's plagiarism. And it's felony because you've used the symbol of the United States on something. So, if it's private, why would you put the United States on there? What doesn't make sense?
Oh, and they got the state national flag there too.
And Arizona. And,
right.
Nothing about this makes sense. Now, I've seen plates that people make that just simply say the word private. And I don't know what to think about that, except it's no different than having nothing. Right? I mean, I don't think it's going to change anything.
No. It's a red flag, if anything.
Yeah. And really,
at least that's better than that.
My opinion on this is that this is essentially a Jew in an internment camp that just made his own tattoo that numbered himself, right? And eventually they find that his number is artificial, and they're going to beat the crap out of him, starve him, whatever, and then really tattoo a number on him. I mean, that's basically this is like a prisoner pretending he's not a prisoner.
Exactly. Oh, they always say, it's not a car, it's not a vehicle, it's an automobile. They always say that, like it's some different. But yeah, so Arizona's starting to crack down on this stuff, guys. Just wait, more states are going to follow them. I anticipate that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with these stories. I'm really interested to see what happens to that lady with the supposed $12 million lawsuit. Yeah, you're back. All right, so anyways, let's move on to Cognitive Dissonance, guys. Hate them or love them, this is from RAND Corporation, which is a think tank. But they're also private intelligence. Look, you may hate them, but let's face it, these people are very well informed. In some aspects, they are better than the CIA when it comes to procuring information. And you see that a lot, especially if Trump, when he was in there, he emphasized on the government using more private intelligence rather than the public. So anyways, people like Rand obviously benefited from that. But anyways, they had a really good article on how cognitive dissonance works in the digital space. Now, they're talking about Russia and Russian propaganda, and there is some truth in it. Not everything's Russian propaganda, but there is a lot of stuff that is. For example, the BRICS narrative, that is absolutely Russian and Chinese propaganda. And I've did a whole length video on dismantling the whole BRICS narrative. It's just such a joke. Have you heard of the BRICS thing, Clint? All right, so since its 2008 incursion into Georgia, which, no, we're not talking about the state of Georgia, we're talking about the country in Eastern Europe. If not before, there has been a remarkable evolution in Russians' approach to propaganda. Now, again, replace Russia with the alternative space, okay, when I'm reading this. So think of Russia as the alternative influencers and gurus. It's the exact same techniques. And mainstream, yeah. Absolutely. It's the same people. This new approach was on full display during the country's 2014 annexation of the Crimean Peninsula. It continues to be, it goes on and on. All right. We characterize the contemporary alternative space model for propaganda as the fire hose of falsehood because of the two of its distinctive features: high numbers of channels. That's definitely true for alternative media, and messages, and a shameless willingness to disseminate partial truths or outright fictions. In the words of one observer, alternative space propaganda entertains, confuses, and overwhelms the audience. Contemporary alternative media propaganda has at least two other distinctive features. It is also rapid, continuous, and repetitive, and it lacks commitment to consistency. Interestingly, several of these features run directly counter to the conventional wisdom on effective influence and communication from government or defense sources, which traditionally emphasize the importance of truth, credibility, and the avoidance of contradiction. Despite ignoring these traditional principles, the alternative media seems to have enjoyed some success under its contemporary propaganda model, either through more direct persuasion and influence or by engaging in obfuscation, confusion, and the disruption of demonization of truthful reporting and messaging. All right, so let's skip forward. Alternative media propaganda is produced in incredibly large volumes and is broadcast or otherwise distributed via a large number of channels. I mean, how many channels have we seen over the years pop up?
Funny you say that. It says that because think about how small comparatively the mainstream is compared to the, I don't know, what is it, thousands and thousands and thousands of alternative, whatever, podcasts and everything else. And it's been so saturated that anyone with any legitimacy is not going to be heard anymore.
Right. Yeah, how do these guys get like 200,000 subscribers, tens of thousands of views? I mean, I barely can break 100 views.
It's because, very simple, really. It's because they're telling people what they want to hear. They're playing to the belief instead of the fact. No one wants to hear the truth. I've discovered that, in triplicate.
Like Jack Nicholson said, you can't handle the truth.
I appreciate those that do, and it's very clear when someone does, even if it's about themselves.
Yeah. This propaganda includes text, video, audio, and still imagery propagated via the internet, social media, which in the alternative space, Telegram is huge on this.
And memes.
Yes. Memes are huge in the alternative media. Satellite television, traditional radio, and television broadcasting. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The producers and disseminators include a substantial force of paid internet trolls. Wow. That's interesting to say that because, I mean, how many trolls do we get, Clint? And you got to wonder, are these people even real? Are they bots?
From what I understood is like each agent will get 10 different accounts.
Yep.
and they will use those accounts in a different way and say different things on each website. That's how I understand it. But I don't know, because I'm not one of them, and I'm the victim of them. I'm not one of them. So that's just what I've heard. Fake accounts. Fake accounts.
Yeah. What was it? Elon Musk uncovered like 80% of the users were fake. Something crazy like that. At least 60%.
Well, I mean, I look at who sends messages to me that are attacking the messenger, as you say, and it's almost always someone they create an account but they have no videos up, themselves, or it's just they're creating it just to have this sort of alternative identity that they can talk shit and not be responsible for it.
Yeah, they hide behind this.
Paid or not.
Avatar, yeah. Experimental research shows that to achieve success in disseminating propaganda, the variety of sources matters. Multiple sources are more persuasive than a single source, especially if those sources contain different arguments that point to the same conclusion. Just like the thing we went over earlier. Oh, the corporation, the illegitimate, blah, blah, blah. So they sprinkle bits of truth, but then they, like we've gone over earlier, they take it way too far. Receiving the same or similar message from multiple sources is more persuasive. People assume that information from multiple sources is likely to be based on different perspectives and is thus worth greater consideration. So how many log gurus are there? I mean, there's got to be at least hundreds now. Thousands.
They learn, and then they try to sell the same thing. But now in this case, I want you to think again of Alex Jones, right? And what's happened with that, where it's not just InfoWars, it's 10 different websites that all say the same thing, but they're all coming from his InfoWars Incorporated. And then you guys were telling me, you and Blake were telling me about how him and
David Icke,
and they're all incorporated with each other, and they're all profiting from each other. And I'd like to see that evidence actually still, but I'd like to do a presentation on that, because I mean, what you're saying here, what this article is saying, it's pointing directly to that propaganda machine that is InfoWars, Truth This, that banned video, right? Banned videos that aren't actually banned.
David Rees, what's the other names? The Health Ranger guy.
Adams, Mike Adams.
Yeah, Mike Adams, who now pushes crypto. But anyways, they're all working for Alex. And Brendan O'Connell actually did a really good uncovering of the LOC documents of all these people involved.
Send that to me and post.
I would, but his channel's down now. I can't find his stuff. Yeah. He had really good stuff. I didn't agree with everything he was saying about broad topics, but he had some good research. I will give him that. And he did a really good job of calling out the China and Russian stuff. Look, Putin and Xi, they're not heroes, guys. I hate to break it to you. I mean, it's just ridiculous. These QAnon people think that Putin and Xi are going to save the world. All right.
Wait, no. Trump.
Oh, Trump. Yeah.
Come on, let's give.
Well, no, they're working with Trump. That's what they're told. Yeah, they're all working together in the secret club, which there is some truth in the secret club part, but it's not what you think.
Well, there's a club, but you ain't in it.
Exactly. Endorsement by a larger number of users boosts consumer trust, reliance, and confidence in the information, often with little attention paid to the credibility of those making the endorsements.
Kind of like the conference that we just were talking about, right?
When consumer interest is low, the persuasiveness of a message can depend more on the number of arguments supporting it rather than the quality of those arguments.
So I'll tell you, I was invited to speak at that Open Your Mind or Free Your Mind conference, Free Your Mind in the lobby of a hotel. But okay. And, I caught on real quick how bad it was and how many people were just talking out their butts about stuff that, just rehashing old stuff. And, I came out against it. I came against who ran it. I came in and did it, I became the bad guy again, just because I'm like, look, this is what they're saying. This is nuts. This is all bullshit. And then I have my name up there, you know. So, well, if he's part of it, it must be legitimate. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. And I hate the fact that my name is associated with that stupid, imbecilic conference. It's just, that's why I don't want to be a part of it anymore, any of it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Communications from groups to which the recipient belongs, just like these Telegram groups, which I'll admit I have one, but we're not having groupthink like this. Belongs are more likely to be perceived as credible. The same applies when the source is perceived as similar to the recipient. Yeah, they have an exact target audience. They have you guys in mind. If a propaganda channel is, or purports to be, from a group the recipient identifies with, it is more likely to be persuasive. All right, so let's skip this part. Quantity does indeed have a quality all of its own. High volume can deliver other benefits that are relevant in the alternative media propaganda context. All right, so they're kind of
go back up to that last bullet point there.
Okay.
In online forums, comments attacking a proponent's expertise or trustworthiness diminish credibility and decrease the likelihood that readers will take action based on what they've read. Man, I mean, right that's there, good, that is the definition of a troll, right?
Yeah.
A troll.
Exactly. Fourth, receiving a message via multiple modes from multiple sources increases the message's perceived credibility, especially if the disseminating source is one with an audience member identifies.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go back up to the previous bullet point, because that's also this is the story of Clint. Read that.
When information volume is low, recipients tend to favor experts, but when information volume is high, recipients tend to favor information from other users.
So if you're giving good, solid, factual information, reading from sources, kind of like what you're doing here, people are going to go elsewhere because they don't want that detail. They don't want to have a college level education. They want to have a 10-minute YouTube video that gives them an idea, and then they can fill in the blank. Again, perfect. And that's why when you're watching the news in America, because this applies to American media as well, right? That's why, they'll have a guest and they give them 30 seconds to speak as if that's a freaking interview, and then move on to a completely either opposite subject or one that's going to cause a dissonance. One that's, global warming is real, global warming is not. Well, which one is it? Well, how do we discern? How do we know? We report, you decide the truth. No, if you're going to report, you must do the due diligence. This is what I was trying to tell all these guys, radio hosts. You can't just have these guys on and give them your support when you gotta do your due diligence and say, okay, I'm going to have this guest on, but first I'm going to verify that what he's saying is accurate and true, and that it's even, possible.
Yeah. First, high volume can consume the attention and other available bandwidth of potential audiences, drawing out competing messages. Right, I'll pump out a video once a week. Clint, I think you pump one out once every month or something like that, every few months.
Again, I'm trying to give you an education. I'm not trying to I'm not entertaining you here.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not my goal. So yeah, I'll go months, sometimes longer.
And that's fine because your video is hours long with detailed stuff. So yeah, that's exactly what this is talking about.
And that's why people go elsewhere.
Right, because these idiots will pump out 3 videos a week, sometimes even more.
Sure, people have already quit my site because I'm not putting out, bullshit content to entertain them. I'm sorry, and this is not my style.
That's ridiculous.
I said, be patient.
Right. I mean, mind you, there is endless hours of content on there.
Well, that was the idea, yeah.
Right. All right. All right. Due to their lack of commitment to objective reality, discussed later, alternative media propagandists do not need to wait to check facts or verify claims. How many times have we seen that? They just disseminate an interpretation of emergent events that appears to be best favored their themes and objectives. Whatever sells more boner pills for Alex Jones, right? This allows them to be remarkably responsive and nimble, often broadcasting the first news of events. Oh, that's so true. And with similar frequency, the first news of non-events or things that have not actually happened. Oh, that reminds me of the U.S. credit downgrade that happened a couple of months ago. Everyone was freaking out. All these talking head pundits were like, "Oh, this is the end, guys. This is it. Economy's fucked," and nothing happened.
It's going to happen again. I can safely predict that it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oh, it's going to happen again. And on and on and on.
Right. Oh, just like the government shutdown that supposedly is happening here soon. Look, they already passed a thing where even if it does get shut down, a lot of stuff will still be running. So.
All it tells me is that it's not needed.
Right, yeah. It's vacation time for them. They really just want a vacation. All right. So, here we go. Sometimes alternative media propaganda is picked up and rebroadcast by legitimate news outlets. More frequently, social media repeats the themes, messages, or falsehoods introduced by one of alternative media's many dissemination channels. Yeah.
Using a picture of a naked model from a German or Russian website so obscure that nobody found it. And they put that up as, this is what you see when is a nude model. This is what you see. This is what the machine sees when you go through it. And this was supposed to be a real picture. One of the first things I ever reported, and it really made me question the InfoWars thing. What a farce that was. Right? And it's all, you have the website with the picture on it. And it's the same picture, but they took the picture and they actually manipulated it to look like an X-ray picture. I mean, that's how fraudulent Jones is.
Unbelievable. Got documents. My Photoshop documents.
Doesn't matter because your family's going to die. You're going to die.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Repeated exposure to a statement has been shown to increase its acceptance as true. So, really good one, for example, de-dollarization. We see that over and over and over and over by the same people. The dollar isn't going. If you guys have tracked the value of the dollar, it's actually been increasing the last few months. When everyone was saying, "Oh, the BRICS summit is happening," 2 months ago? This is the end. So the dollar was literally strengthening while that was happening.
You should have invested in the dollar.
You should have invested in the dollar. I try to tell people.
Well, do people even know you can buy it low and sell it high? It's just like gold. It's the bullshit price. It doesn't mean anything. You're just betting. You're just knowledgeable enough to know when it's going to go up and down based on world events.
Right. It's actually pretty simple when you know how to read these things, but yeah, it's just unbelievable. So meanwhile, everyone believes the dollar's going to die, and then they miss out on these kind of opportunities that I'm trying to teach.
And what does every billionaire always say? He says they make the most money when the economy's at its worst. When a depression happens, you can be one of the people that makes all that. Hey, if you want to be that person, great. Right? You want to take advantage of other people's sufferings, okay, do it. It's not my style. But, it's true because everything has been monetized. I mean, they've monetized the weather, right? Weather futures.
Weather futures. They got event futures now. I'm looking into trading that.
Right. But, why not just bet where the next earthquake is going to be? Have a lottery.
Yeah. Speaking of that, guys, yes, there is a way to monetize on stuff like the COVID crash, but what's more important is to protect what you have. So if you have like a 401k, you got stock investments, it's important to hedge that out using these tools like derivatives. So if anything, you want to hedge out that risk. I am holding an event, just a little shout out. I hate doing these kind of commercials, but it's related. So anyways, I will show you guys how to hedge out the risk on your portfolios, whether you got a 401k or an individual investment account. So if, Black Swan event does happen, something changes in the macro environment, you're going to be prepared, and you're going to spend very little money on this hedge. If you do the quantitative studies that I've done, you'll see you'll massively outperform those who didn't have the hedge. Just like Clint's saying, this is what the rich do.
Right. And he's like, yeah, I did really well on the derivatives market. And I'm like, okay, that's great.
Yeah. He's talking about I've been shorting the index futures the last couple of weeks. So, yeah.
No, the kid knows what he's talking about is my point. Said, I choose not to be involved in all that. I'm not saying you shouldn't, especially if you are going to build some kind of, fortune or estate. Then, yeah, I mean, you're gonna need that kind of planning and that kind of. I mean, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? I guess is the point. If you're going to participate in the system, you might as well do it right.
Yeah, and the goal is not to do this for their whole your life. The goal is to amass a certain wealth for your family so they can not participate in these things, right? That's what my whole goal is.
And I have to, I wouldn't have agreed with that at a certain point when I believed all this crap that we're exposing. But at this point, like I said, I mean, like, I guess you could say, okay, let's compare it to a prison again. You'd be a fool not to trade your cigarettes or your whatever, participate in the prison commerce and get some, benefits from being in there. You would be dumb not to do that, and you'd probably be, you'd be in even more impoverished, dependent state than you would be if you participated. So I'm not against it. I'm just, I don't like it.
It's not for everyone. That's for sure.
I don't think you like it. I think you just understand that it's a means to an end.
Exactly. I don't think everyone should be doing what I do, but it's it is what it is.
Just like almost no one should be being a secured party creditor and doing what the guru says they do.
Exactly. Again, we're only doing that for equity stripping and an actual practical thing where you have
no, we're doing it for entertainment only.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. This is not tax, it's legal advice.
This is not legal. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. As if that does anything.
That's the key warning, right? Nope, stay away from that one.
Right. And that's what all these people do, which is hilarious.
Just imagine for a moment if an attorney, you went to an attorney's office and you wanted to seek legal help and representation and advice, and the attorney says, well, I can't give legal advice, but I can give you entertainment value. Here's a bunch of bullshit. Let me shoot it at you. Well, imagine if an attorney said that. I can't imagine them not being disbarred, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, even with attorneys, when they're making videos, they have to say, look, this is an advertisement. I am servicing or advertising my attorney services.
It's like anything else.
Guys, Clint and I were talking the other day or yesterday. I might be getting my law degree, guys. So I don't know.
And I'm sitting here thinking, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
right. Just I can help people the most.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, at this point in the journey, I don't see. I mean, I thought about it. I just feel like I'm too. I feel like I'm too old, and just have so much crap on my plate already that I don't want to take it on. But I mean, I'd be a really prime candidate to do it.
Oh yeah.
But the thought of sitting and doing what I've already done for years, which is reading case law, because that's essentially what it boils down to. and actually remembering stupid facts instead of actually getting the full picture of it. It's almost like memorizing Bible verses, but not knowing anything about what the Bible actually says.
That was my background.
You can quote it, but you have no idea what that quote even means because you don't know the terms. Yeah, it's just don't get lost in the ether.
In the sauce.
Yeah. I mean, when I went to sound engineering school, it was me. I was older, in my 30s, and there was a bunch of kids, and all the kids, all they wanted to do was learn how to make beats. But they were teaching us these $1 million, soundboards and this beautiful, beautiful equipment. All they wanted to do is make beats, learn how to use Pro Tools to make beats. I'm like, you guys are foolish. So who ends up with a job at the top company? The guy that went to everything. By the end of my school, all those kids acting like children weren't even showing up to class anymore. I was the only one in my final class with the most advanced soundboard ever, and I got to ask all these. I was great. I'm sure the teacher preferred that I wasn't there because he would have not had to teach at all because none of these kids showed up. So yeah, if you get caught up in the minutia, the party atmosphere,
I've been there.
You're not going to come out with anything if you.
Yeah.
I mean, even our teacher said, "Look, for the next however long you're going to be in this school, let your family know, let your friends know, you're not going to be there. You're this is your life right now. If you don't do that, you're going to fail." And most of those people fail.
I saw a lot of guys I was friends with do that. They got too carried away with the partying, the drinking, the drugs. It was sad to see, but hey, they did it to themselves. So anyways, I left because I was making FU money at the time at 20 years old. So I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Why are you teaching me business? Anyways. All right. When people are less interested in the topic, they are more likely to accept familiarity brought about by repetition as an indicator that the information repeated to the point of familiarity is correct. When processing information, consumers may save time and energy by using a frequency heuristic. Oh, that's a really good thing to point out. That is favoring information. See, that's what I'm always talking about. People get triggered because I don't check off their little boxes that they expect me to check off, right? That they're using in alternative media. Let's see. Flat Earth. What else? Tax protesting.
Viruses don't exist.
Yeah, viruses don't exist.
and what does that have to do with trust? Exactly.
Oh, I know. I said that in one interview recently. Someone was making fun of me for not being a flat earther. I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything I'm talking about?
Well, okay. But as long as we're talking about cognitive dissonance, it is the same. I mean, it's an essential part of the Hegelian dialectic too, which, if you understand the Hegelian dialectic, not the way Alex Jones explains it, or what's his name, Ike, with the problem reaction solution thing, right? That's not the Hegelian dialectic. Hegelian dialectic is to cause you to believe in a negative argument, meaning something that is known scientifically to exist does not exist. Right? That is the Hegelian dialectic, and it's pretty amazing to see how it's been applied with flat Earth and with the virus people and all that. It's really a powerful, powerful tool, but it's a specialized form of cognitive dissonance where you're actually going out of your way to believe in a non-existence. In other words, like it's kind of the same with the notion of God in religious debate, where you have the God exists or God doesn't exist. But how do you say something doesn't exist unless it already does?
Right.
I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful mind screw, and that's the Hegelian dialectic is to cause you to believe in the non-existence. It's basically nihilism. And of course, by me saying this, I'm the enemy. But I'm like, read read Hegel. Don't just listen to Alex Jones talk about it and give you a really shitty explanation. No, go read Hegel. Don't just take the word of someone on the radio.
Right, exactly. It's here the virus thing. It wasn't until I found your work that I didn't realize that snake venom is a virus. So to deny that that exists is just so asinine.
Well, venom in general, poison is
Yeah,
another word for, and when you really break it down, all medicine is poison.
right.
Even water is poison if you drink too
Mhm.
much, I guess technically.
Yeah, it could be.
So I mean, medicine is poison. It's just you're not taking enough to do the harm necessarily, although that's what the side effects are. But yeah, I mean, it's not what people think. You know,
Yeah.
it's and I think it's because of those so-called quote unquote virus hunters and that kind of thing. That I don't know. It's just a weird culture.
It really is. It's something else. All right. So we got the save time heuristic. Even with preposterous stories and urban legends, how many of these gurus are doing that? They're great storytellers. They got great legends. Oh, the
The
queen. I made the queen
bankruptcy of the
default.
United States. The three bankruptcies of the United
Oh,
States. A story that I retold even better than them. And I
yeah.
had no proof of that story, and
Same.
I had to retract.
Yeah.
Then
I've
I
been there.
found out that the United States can't declare bankruptcy. It's not even an option.
Right. Doesn't even make sense. Oh, and then the whole Federal Reserve thing. We triggered so many people
Of
with that.
course, that was my first big project.
I mean, after you realize that, you're like, what else is?
Well, it's just amazing that the detail of the story when compared to the detail of the truth is it's amazing the things that they come up with, things that
Yeah,
they use to justify the lie or the fraud. I mean, and it goes deep.
it really does. All right. If an individual is already familiar with an argument or claim, has seen it before, for example. Okay, so let's think about it. 508C1A. What are the other ones? Private business trust, UCC. That's what these
9/11.
people are talking. Yeah, 9/11.
Look, this was. I mean, talk about a perfect segue. Perfect. This was basically the logo of We Are Change. That if enough people are confronted by this guerrilla type of journalism, right? If you get in their face and show them Building 7 at least 3 times, then they're going to come around and finally look at it themselves. That was the very basis of going to a park or going to a public place, holding up a sign and annoying the fuck out of people, just to get your message. But the point is that they're going to see it over and over, and eventually they're going to look. So we hang banners over the freeway, which again, it's no different than any other protest, except you're not getting permission, and so the cops come, and you decide you know whether it's a good cop or a bad cop if they don't mess with you. So I mean, that's a perfect description of these groups like We Are Change. They're just about getting in your face and over and over to the point where you look at yourself. I mean, that is, again, we're talking about the basics of propaganda, and that's what we're doing. We're selling, we're distributing propaganda, and unfortunately, We're a Change big supporter of 9/11 theories, which I'm all about. I did a lot of research into it, but
Sure.
also here's an Alex Jones video. They're like supporters of that. So
Right.
unfortunately, that ruins everything.
Yeah, I remember when I was 12, I found out what Bilderberg was. And I remember seeing exactly what we're talking about, the guerrilla journalist confronting these people. Like, how dare you be at this event? I think Alex Jones was even there. I didn't know who he was at the time at 12, but I remember seeing that. Yeah.
A child listening to Alex Jones.
Oh, jeez. Can you imagine?
So he would do outrageous things. The Y2K, for instance. He staged. I mean, if you saw this, I can't imagine you ever giving him any credit. He staged basically an Orwell. He was covering the craziness, the war, the outages, the plants, the nuclear power plants that were going down because of Y2K, and he was making this huge story, and nothing actually happened. Again, no retraction. No, I'm sorry for lying out my teeth, right? Because none of this was actually happening. I mean, it was basically the what was the Orwell thing that he told on the radio about the aliens, you know?
Oh, yeah, they read the fake,
War of the Worlds, basically.
Yeah.
The fake invasion was the fake Y2K. And after seeing that, and knowing what Bill Cooper said about the guy, I don't know, anybody can support him. What a lying piece of crap. And to be saying that to where people might actually react. And I can't tell you how many people have killed themselves or done stupid things to get themselves killed or harmed because of Jones. I can't believe the guy, well, okay, let me rephrase. I can believe that he is their main troll. I can believe that he's their main paid agent. I mean, that's so many things have come out on that. Whatever that company, that intelligence company, Stratfor or whatever.
Stratfor,
all that stuff. I mean, I just can't believe people still fall for this and buy such crap products too. And then of course, we are down here in the minutia, trying to looking up from the turd like a fly. It's just, it's just so frustrating to be in this position,
Yeah. This next characteristic, however, flies in the face of intuition and conventional wisdom. It can be paraphrased as, quote, "the truth always wins," end quote. How many times have we heard that?
It's always truth, whether it's a lie or not. That's the problem.
Yeah. Contemporary alternative media propaganda makes little or no commitment to the truth.
I've been saying that for a long time. I thought that's what it was about, which is why I got into it in the first place, and then quickly found out, no, people don't want the truth.
Absolutely not. This is not to say that all of it is false. Quite the contrary. It often contains a significant fraction of the truth. Sometimes, however, events reported in alternative media propaganda are wholly manufactured. Just like the 2014 social media campaign to create panic about an explosion in the chemical plume in St. Mary's Parish, Louisiana. That never happened. Russian propaganda has relied on manufactured evidence, often photogenic, just like that thing you're talking about, Clint, the fake nude picture.
Well, how about these groups, Nasera and everything, always talking about, the guy with $1 trillion or whatever is going to save and rescue you. What's going to happen now?
The training,
or how about the dinar? You're finally going to
the dinar,
dinars, and this is going to happen, and Trump is going to do this, and I mean, how many false prophecies does it take for you to stop following this shit? I don't understand. It's cult-like behavior. I don't get it.
It is cult behavior, and what's that lady named Catherine Austin Fitz? Yeah, people got so mad when I called her out her BS. They're like, "What? She's great." I'm like, look.
Well, yeah, I can understand. She presents herself just like all these other guys as legitimate.
It is a guy. I'm convinced. It's fucking training. All right. In addition to manufacturing information, alternative media propagandists often manufacture sources. Oh, boom, mic drop. Alternative news channels such as, should I call it certain channels right now? I don't know. We'll have to do that on a different podcast, but let's just say one ends with a number combination. And more a blend of infotainment. Oh, there we go. Infotainment and disinformation than fact-check journalism. Though their formats are intentionally take the appearance of it. In mind you, we get it. The fact-checkers are often part of the same problem. But still, we're talking about actual fact-checking. All right. Forensic proof, which none of these people ever present. Oh, I go to a secret court. I go to a special court. Oh, yeah? Where's the case? Oh, I put the queen in default. Oh, but you're under NDA, so why are you talking about it? Right. Russian news channels and other forms of media also misquote credible sources or cite a more credible source as the origin of a selected falsehood. For example, RT stated that blogger Brown Moses, a staunch critic of Syria's Assad regime, whose real name is Elliot Higgins, has provided analysis of footage suggesting that chemical weapon attacks on August 21st, 2015 has been perpetuated by Syrian rebels. In fact, Higgins' analysis concluded that the Syrian government was responsible for the attacks and that the footage had been faked to shift the blame. Yeah, RT has lied a lot, just like any other media outlet. They're not special for that, but I saw one recently. They had a headline, New Currency, New World, and they're talking about the supposed BRICS currency, which, by the way, it didn't happen. That was a complete lie. They said, oh, it's going to come out August BRICS Summit. They're going to announce it. Lie. And no one will call them out, besides me.
It's going to come out Fedcoin in every country. It's Bitcoin, but it's called Fedcoin. It's going to eliminate all the others. And it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be cash. The value is going to be in dollars. It's just now
we're already
completely
there.
digital. Yeah,
we were talking about that yesterday.
They've entrained people to think that cryptocurrency is a good thing, and now they're going to spring it on you, and you're not going to. There's nothing you're going to do about it.
The technology itself has good applications outside of economics, but not for economics. Yeah, so anyone, the crypto
great for the black market.
You would think, but even that, a lot of them get in trouble for using crypto because then they get tracked.
Well, they think no. What are you talking about? It's not traceable.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh,
that's the big lie.
Oh, well, NFTs are the future. My JPEG that I bought has intrinsic value that no one can screenshot and just save on their phone. I know so many guys that lost money on crypto and NFTs. I mean,
a lot of guys made money on it, and you got to wonder.
Well, it was a pump and dump. Yeah.
Did they know? I mean, are they making money because they're somehow shorting it or longing it? Or
I shorted Bitcoin back in the end of 2021.
I mean, it would make sense because something so volatile. I mean, you could short it for 1,000 and it'd go down 10,000. You know, I mean, it's like, gee.
Yeah. In a phenomenon known as the sleeper effect, low credibility sources manifest greater persuasive impact with the passage of time. While people make initial assessments of the credibility of a source, and remembering information is often dissociated from its source. Thus, information from a questionable source may be remembered as true, with the source forgotten. Oh, man, that's good. I mean, how many times?
I mean, it's my claim to fame is this. If you're arguing with me, you're arguing with the source I'm reading.
Right.
That's it, or exactly. Trying to explain. I can't stress enough how important all this is.
Yeah. Information that is initially assumed valid, but is later retracted or proven false, can continue to shape people's memory and influence their reasoning. Even when people are aware that some sources, such as political campaign rhetoric, have the potential to contain misinformation, they still show a poor ability to discriminate between information that is false and information that's correct. Familiar themes are good.
So, to be clear, just so people understand, when a politician speaks in public, there is no law or requirement or bond or anything else. There's no oath that says he has to tell the truth. When they're campaigning, there is nothing that says they have to tell the truth because it's public. The only time they're required to tell the truth is under oath. They're not under oath most of the time, which is why they're all filthy freaking liars. So nothing that Trump says, nothing that any of these guys say on the road, in campaign speeches, or even in a public hearing can be trusted. It's not under oath.
Someone is more likely... Okay, this is kind of repeating. Here's a new one. People suffer from confirmation bias. And yeah, that is a very strong thing. They view news and opinions that confirm existing beliefs as more credible than other news and opinions, regardless of the quality of the arguments. So that's the biggest thing for me, the quality of the arguments, right? Here we are calling out sham trust, and the gurus writing them up say, oh, well, obviously they don't know how to write trust stuff. I've written 100. Okay, but we're pulling up the IRS calling this exact format of a trust bullshit.
But putting a trust into a computer, changing the information that is personal and making a Xerox copy is not writing up a trust, okay?
Yeah.
Each trust would be very different from the next according to the estate of the whoever's, everyone's going to be different. So
exactly.
No, you haven't written 100 trusts.
Right.
You've Xeroxed or copied, and then or you've sold the copy and say change the information yourself, which is even lazier.
Yeah, that's the thing. I always tell people, trusts, they have to be. Everyone's life is so idiosyncratic. It's just like a suit. I mean, it's not the fabric. It's how it fits your dimensions individually, right? But these people talk about the fabric. It doesn't make any sense. Someone who is already misinformed, that is, believes something that is not true, is less likely to accept evidence that goes against those misinformed beliefs. How many times have you seen that?
This is the story of my life. I gotta tell you,
really
man.
Is. I know. When I read this,
my experience daily.
Same. People whose peer group is affected by an event are much more likely to accept conspiracy theories about that event. Let's just say not even an event, but law. How the law actually works.
Yeah. There again, 9/11, perfect example.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Stories or accounts that create emotional arousal in the recipient, e.g., disgust, fear, or happiness, are much more likely to be passed on, whether they are true or not. Man, this applies to financial channels as well. There's so many. I've called out a lot of these too. These finance gurus. I mean,
well, and there's a reason that I keep saying the false redemption movement, because this really is cult-like, religious-like following, where you're not questioning. The whole foundation of religion is not to question the false god, right? I mean, you question, then you're an outcast. You're not welcome in the parish, right? So those who question religion are really looked down upon, or even if it's a legitimate question.
Yeah. Angry messages are more persuasive to angry audiences. Wow. False statements are more likely to be accepted if backed by evidence, even if the evidence is false. The presence of evidence can override the effects of source credibility on perceived veracity of statements. In courtroom simulations, witnesses who provided more details, even trivial details, are judged to be more. Finally, source credibility is often assessed based on peripheral cues, which may or may not conform to the reality of the situation. A broadcast that looks like a news broadcast, just like Alex Jones.
Okay, again, I remember way back when that Alex Jones was saying that he was talking crap about organizations like his who switched their format to look like a news agency, and that was how that was a propaganda thing. And then he did it. And that's why everything he says, he goes against. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
It really is. A broadcast that looks more like a news broadcast, even if it is actual propaganda broadcast, let's just say podcast, may be accorded to the same degree of credibility as an actual news broadcast. Findings from the field of psychology show how peripheral cues can increase the credibility of propaganda. Right, yeah,
Mnemonics are very important. That's all the things that are flashing and moving. A thing he talked about and interviewed. I even interviewed someone because I heard them talking about it on his show. I had them on my show years later. The mnemonics, those when the show opens and there's all this, crazy crap happening in the artwork. That is what this is talking about. And sure enough, go watch the InfoWars podcast. All these things going like this all over the place. Go watch a football game. All these mnemonics happening and all this crazy graphics. That's all sports is propaganda. It's essentially nationalist propaganda.
Yeah. Exactly. That's always why I've been interested in sports like snowboarding or skateboarding. You know, you don't get any of that credit.
True.
Peripheral cues such as the appearance of expertise or the format of information lead people to accept with little reflection that the information comes from a credible source. Expertise and trustworthiness are the two primary dimensions of credibility, and these qualities may be evaluated based on visual cues such as format, appearance, or simple claims of expertise. Claims of expertise. That's probably the biggest one in the alt space. Online news sites are perceived as more credible than other online formats, regardless of the veracity of content. I see that really true in the finance space. Like a lot of people go to Zero Hedge. I mean, what a shit show that website.
I remember.
Seen that, Clint?
He tried to publicly assassinate my character when it came to Kaffir.
Really?
And it wasn't even me that came to my rescue. It was Walter Burien himself, the guru on Kaffirs, the real guru, the real expert on Kaffirs.
Right.
Right? And he just tore him a new a-hole and saying, man, you're messing with the wrong. I mean, this kid's actually doing what no one else is doing, studying him, trying to explain him, and you're here, you're here talking crap basically for no reason. And I was happy that I didn't have to defend myself because I was like, wow, holy crap. So yeah, Zero Hedge, man.
Garbage.
It is garbage. Again, though, it's mixed with truth.
You're right.
It's mixed with things that make it seem credible. And man, anybody who's an economist, a historian, or anything like that, you can't trust it.
Right. Especially those two, the economists and historians. I mean, imagine taking these people's financial advice. Whatever Zero Hedge says, do the opposite.
Well, what they talk about is so limited in the grand scope of everything that you can't trust it because it leaves out 98% of the market or what forms the market,
Well, that's what people don't understand, what forms the market, which is several pieces of data that is a systematic framework that actual professionals track and follow.
Sure.
But will these people ever...
In my humble opinion, and this is an opinion, it is a guess. It's just like InfoWars, the company that backs it, selling the network, GCN selling gold and being gold gurus, right? They've made so much money off and convincing you to buy gold and sell it, gold, buy it, but right? Yeah. There's something behind it. There's an organization behind it. They're promoting the metals industry while being the one selling you the thing that they're promoting. That's actually illegal with drugs and stuff. You can't actually sell a product and also have the book on it that says what it is and why you should buy it. You have to have those things separate. So what I think is that these guys, I mean, it's basically the typical scam of penny stocks, where you say, hey, everybody, you should buy this penny stock because it's going to, in the future, it's going to be huge. And even if it goes up a few cents, you're going to make a lot of money. Well, put that on a more grand scheme. Zero Hedge and all these websites, they're supporting very specific theories or economic, turns and stuff. So technically, it's the same as getting you to support or buy something.
It is
through the propaganda. And you mix all these websites together, you're gonna, if you follow Zero Hedge, chances are you're gonna follow the other sites that are, affiliated and that they support each other with.
Yep.
And so chances are you're going to eventually get to something that's going to tell you to buy, or sell. And that means that what they bought or sold earlier is going to go up in price, and they're going to sell or they're going to buy. Whatever they're causing you to do to affect the market, if you can get millions of people or millions of dollars suddenly to go into the market, it's going to cause an up or a down, and they're going to benefit from the up or the down. They're going to short it. That's what I think these private news sites, if you will, are actually doing in conjunction with each other. But that's just my theory.
I agree. I see these patterns, and it's hard to ignore. I
It's the
remember.
same thing. It's the same thing as when my friend and I get the same recommendations from freaking YouTube, and we're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all the real crimes happening without without any proof.
Yeah, exactly. I remember last year someone shared with me a Zero Head article, and mind you, or this was earlier this year, I think. The article read, because this is while the market was driving up quite a bit from the 2022 sell-off, and the bull run was starting to happen. And Zero Hedge said, how aggravating would it be that stocks all of a sudden plummeted? It was basically saying that narrative, right? And they came up with all these arguments. Oh, look at this chart, blah, 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 blah. And mind you, if you took that advice, you would have lost a shit ton of money. Your shorts would have been squeezed out, right? But that's the goal. That's what they get you to do. These idiots
no
like Zero Hedge.
Yeah. No apology, no retraction, right?
No. Oh, but crypto good. Gold good. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So, hey, this is a good segue. So the final distinctive characteristic of alternative media propaganda is that it is not committed to consistency. First, different propaganda media do not necessarily broadcast the exact same themes or messages. Second, different channels do not necessarily broadcast the same account of contested events. Third, different channels or representatives show no fear of changing their tune. Oh, how many times have we seen that? The alternative space went from, what was it? The state national to non-citizen national to 508c1a to now sham trust. I wonder what the next thing will be.
Global warming, global cooling, climate change is what we rested on.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If one falsehood or misrepresentation is exposed or is not well received, the propagandist will discard it and move on to a new, though not necessarily more plausible explanation. How many of these law channels have done that? One example of such behavior is the string of accounts offered for the downing of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. All right, we won't get on that. We'll skip that.
Well, how about the tax protest movement? I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Altered. 16th, 70s, 80s, 90s. You know, it's the same thing over and over.
Well, Clint,
but made a little more logical.
I have an irrevocable common law, discretionary spendthrift trust. That's what these gurus are pumping out now. That should be our next show.
It's not a corporate trust?
No. It's not statutory. It's not corporate. It's private. It's non-statutory.
Well, that'll be the next new thing. And even though nobody knows what that statement you just made means,
they have no idea.
Go with it, and then it'll change, and soon we'll be in the 2030s. And
yeah. Oh, which by the way, I think our next show we talk about that because I found a criminal case on the guys that wrote the Art of Passing the Buck book. Turns out that, yes, they did get in trouble with legal action of the DOJ and IRS, and we will show the documents.
And if I can find it, I used to have a guy that would always leave comments on my blog, so I'll look for it. And he had every single tax protester and how they failed, what actually happened compared to what they said happened.
Ooh, that'd
and
be a good show.
Every single one of them has failed. There is no success. And as I've said before, there is no winning here.
No.
Right? You don't win as a prisoner. You don't win as a house slave. You don't get. I mean, if you have a victory, it is not winning the war. Right? The war is unwinnable at this point. You know, it's just you're not succeeding at anything, even if you get a summary judgment that this and this and this, or if your paperwork is accepted, you're not winning. There's no winning. Right. But if you can be made to think that there's a redemption, a win, a money at the end of the rainbow, well then, you know, I guess the propaganda machine is working, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you could find all those past tax protection cases, that would be an amazing show to do. I have a couple of cases I think we should go over, though. One of the State National guys, who's the granddaddy of the whole State National narrative, and then Art of Passing the Bucks guys. I think we should go through those two for sure. But yeah, both people got permanent injunctions to stop what they're doing. But it's really interesting how it wasn't actually enforced. It kind of shows to me that they're agents.
Okay, this reminds me. The guy that apparently hates my guts, named Roger Sales. I mean, his website tells you what got him into doing this. It was he was a salesman for the recording industry. I can't imagine that. That's just absolutely beware.
Right.
Those who screw over all artists. Secondly, he was in multi-level marketing.
Oh.
Thirdly, he and spin sales basically, and then thirdly, tax protest movement.
Wow.
And all these people are doing what he says, and of course they're getting their little passport cards or whatever, and claiming that they're something they're not, state nationals, right? And it's the same thing, state nationals. I'm a citizen, but not a citizen.
Oh, well, the new thing is non-citizen.
Non-citizen.
Or, what do they call it? State citizen.
I mean, that's the point. If you're from Guam, you're not a citizen, but you are a national. National meaning you owe allegiance to the United States because it conquered you.
Exactly. Oh, well, the new thing is State of the Union citizen.
I'm not even going to comment.
Yeah, we won't even go there. Contradictions can prompt a desire to understand why a shift in opinion or message occurred. When a seemingly strong argument for a shift is provided or assumed, e.g. more thoughts is given or more information is obtained, the new message can have a greater persuasive impact. When a source appears to have considered different perspectives, that makes me think of two podcasts in particular. I've never seen that word. Attitudinal confidence is greater. A source who changes his or her opinion or message may be perceived as having given greater consideration to the topic, thereby influencing recipient confidence in the newest message. Oh.
What was I going to say? Never mind. I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Potential losses in credibility due to inconsistency are potentially offset by synergies with other characteristics of contemporary propaganda. As noted earlier in the discussion of multiple channels, the presentation of multiple arguments by multiple sources is more persuasive than either the presentation of the multiple arguments by one source or the presentation of one argument by multiple sources. These losses can also be offset by peripheral cues that enforce perceptions of credibility, trustworthiness, or legitimacy. Even if a channel or individual propagandist changes accounts of events from one day to the next, viewers are likely to evaluate the credibility of the new account without giving too much weight to the prior mistaken account. Oh, how many of these channels hosting these gurus will ever admit that they made a mistake?
Having these people zero. Yeah, I mean it's the truth. I've never heard it. I've never heard anybody say no, we were wrong. And they're making money.
They are.
Is what it boils down to. They don't care about the truth or not the truth. And I'll say it over and over. The truth. You can't sell the truth because the truth already is. Right. Not an invention. You're not redefining it. It's there. It's there. It's you can't sell it, and that's I'm a failure because you can't sell the truth. And I didn't realize that when we say the truth movement, we didn't really mean the truth. we meant the opinion or the conspiracy movement. It's not really the truth. And
right.
I'm still shocked at that. I'm still shocked that all these people are not seeking the truth.
I'm a truther.
Yeah.
I'm the stupidest title.
Which means I sit around and call everybody else a sheep.
Right.
That's all it means.
I'm a special.
I mean, I think that's part of the dialectic as well, is to it puts you in a situation where you're part of a group that has similar beliefs.
There we go. That's what this article.
And you really do feel better, just like at a protest. You go there because like-minded people are protesting a similar thing. Well, all We Are Change was you got together, you talked about all the shit that was happening, you called other people stupid or uninformed or sheep, even though you didn't know hardly anything past what they know. You just have a few theories in your head, or you've read a book, right? That is really what groups like We Are Change are boiled down to eventually. That in the guerrilla aspect of it, where you're confronting people, which I quite enjoyed. I quite enjoyed getting in the face of my politicians and asking them tough questions. But for the most part, they're not doing that. They're saying, you're a Rockefeller, and therefore you're responsible for everything. That's so. I mean, it really is. It boils down to a group mentality, and you're just going from following mainstream to following the alternative. You're still a follower. You're not doing the research. You're not doing what it takes to decipher what is true and what is not.
Yeah, exactly. Why would the truth need a movement in the first place? I've been saying the truth movement is the creation of the new normies. That's really what it is.
Well, and it's also there was a movement way back when in the 60s, 70s. I think it was called Z or something like that, and it was about being correct all the time, and people were just so annoyed by it. And all we're doing is rehashing the same old movement. I wish I could remember what it was called. I think I wrote about it. I'll look it up and go over. I think I wrote about it, so it's got to be somewhere.
I used to be really into the 60s counterculture and stuff like that as a teenager. I'd research it, but back then I was kind of a target. So,
but you gotta remember how much of that was CIA driven, and how much of that was propaganda. How much of that was the influence of Indian, red dot Indian culture. Karma, all the yoga and everything else. The whirling dervishes that everybody was doing at the Grateful Dead shows.
Oh, my gosh. Listen, the Grateful Dead was factually CIA.
The one of the times that I actually, I believe I did a psychedelic drug unintentionally was at a Grateful Dead show. And I gotta say, man, it was an experience to behold, especially the bazaar before the show in the parking lot. And, you're standing there suddenly coming to your consciousness after this delusion, this whatever trip it is. I don't know. Someone gave me something. And, you're standing next to a lady breastfeeding, and over here is, it's the craziest thing you'll ever experience. It's very bohemian. And the music's kind of in the background. It's not really the main focus, even. It's like the people there are the show. It's bizarre.
That's interesting. Yeah. It also reminds me, too, I used to be really into art. I thought I was going to be an artist someday in the art world. And
sincerely, what I saw of your stuff is incredible.
Yeah. When I get more time, I do want to get back into it. But maybe I'll show you guys someday. It's to me, that's one of my passions. But anyways, I kind of got what do you call it? Not morally defeated. What is it called? I got demoralized when I found out as a teenager. I looked into the CIA's involvement with the art world and how they produce artists like Jackson Pollock to create abstract paintings, and then it turned into first it was Dadaism, then abstract movement, and then stuff like Warhol, stuff like that. So that kind of demoralized me when I realized, man, this is all bullshit.
For my book, he's a comic book artist. As soon as he started trying to do something good with the art instead of the typical bullshit superhero stuff and all the stuff that they, he was like, I want to do something meaningful.
Yeah.
He'd lost all credibility. I mean, it's like, what? Okay, all right, sure, that makes sense. But it's amazing what the CIA does admit to, and I think it does so, like Operation Mockingbird and all that. I think it does so just because there's absolutely no way it can be hidden. I mean, it's so blatantly out there, and I think by admitting it, we all think, oh, well, it doesn't happen anymore. it's just now it's public knowledge. People just don't think about it anymore, even though, I mean, if you're going to tell me that the news media is not controlled thereof today, ugh, boy.
Yeah, exactly. There we go again with cognitive dissonance and Galilean dialectic.
And I'm not going to go on a show and friggin' lie through my teeth or try to sell something to, and not speak the truth. I just refuse. I can't be part of it anymore. So
yeah, it's not worth it. It's really not.
No. It's bad for your soul. I mean, there's no way. And I've always been that way. I mean, I held my tongue a lot when I was on a network, just because they're advertising gold and silver, or one of the hosts that I know is a fraud. I'm like, well, I can't really. I hate having any kind of sponsorship or anything like that, because you're beholden to it. And
sure.
Right now I can say anything I want, and people are gonna hate it. Some of them, and that's okay. Weeds out the weaklings.
Those people.
My
motivate
conscience is clear.
Those people want me to make more content, actually.
I mean, after a while, I've just been doing this too long. I think that I've lost any. I always railed against hope, but I did have a little hope that you'd actually make a difference. And for individuals, people out there have written me letters, and how much they appreciate it and how it's affected their lives, and that is probably more than anything what keeps me going.
I can attest to that. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and said that you changed their lives for the better. So
even if it means people are going to the Bible and looking at it with fresh eyes, and that's very special to me. So
I think that was the biggest thing that people get out of stuff is, like myself, I grew up in a Christian background, and it's very easy for me to resent that, and then you get a little more mature and realize, okay, there is something there. It's just not how the church presents it. So
it's not there to present it correctly. That's the whole point. And not to mention that it's a corporation, which the Bible's against. So how do you justify that?
Right. Yeah, the 501c3s. But when you touched on that God is a further, that was a huge mic drop for me.
That was huge in my life. I mean, it changed the whole perspective. That you're not thinking in terms of man-made gods anymore. You're thinking, you're as you said earlier, you're thinking from the 1,000-foot view or whatever, God's point of view. Just like if you're going to know anything about the way governments work, you must look at it from an international view, not domestic. You can't look as a slave. You can't understand your master. You must take the disposition of the master and look at yourself as a slave to understand why things are the way they are, and why you don't seem to understand why they are the way they are. I mean, it's just weird, and I think that's what also makes a good author is the ability to put yourself in the procrastinator's point of view, and then come back to good and cross over to the evil point of view, but never lose your real perspective. And I think it allows you to see both sides neutrally, as opposed to having an opinion based thing on it. And even what you were reading, I mean, that's coming from an intelligence agency talking about how intelligence agencies use propaganda as if the United States is not doing the same exact shit.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, wow, that's kind of weird that would be even public,
I know. This is interesting. Well, next week, I'm going to talk about more on legal marriage. We're going to talk about what you guys, especially men, should be doing if you're going to get some type of union with a woman. In today's world, you got to keep your assets separate. And we're going to talk about what that all involves. We're going to talk about marital assets and non-marital assets, how to keep those things separate. And no, prenups, postnups are not enough. We're going to go into that, past cases. A lot of times trust will solve that problem. I'm not saying that's even the end-all be-all, because you got to be careful on how you manage that in a marriage. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. I think you should come on that, Clint. That'd be a fun one to have you on. But, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of misconceptions out there on how this stuff works. A lot of attorneys will lie to you because they're selling you prenups and postnups. Even some of the alternative people are.
They're selling you divorce before you get a divorce.
They are.
You gotta get married before you can get a divorce. I hope you're another couple suckers that are marrying for love, like a bunch of idiots. Marriage, that's not what marriage is. It's for a state.
We were just talking about that yesterday, yeah. It wasn't until, 50 years ago, people married for love. Back then, it was about utility, which hopefully society will go back to. We'll see.
And that kind of sounds cold, but I mean,
it's really not.
This is a business transaction. You're taking upon yourself. Your wife is your agent, so if you're going to be the principal and be responsible for everything, which is why you pay so much, then you better take precautions to make sure that the attorney class is with. I mean, even the very idea of getting a divorce, someone is putting that in, propagandizing that, whether it's through entertainment or whatever, in the ear. I mean, I guess you got to think of it in the old times. Why was divorce looked so down upon as opposed to why is it so popular now? But you got to think, well, it's because when they married for life to form an allegiance and a state between two families.
Exactly.
Well, we don't even know who our family is now. We hate our family, so we've been defeated in that way too. So
yeah, that's something I've noticed in the millennials. If you guys don't already know, I identify more with the Gen Z, obviously more of a Zoomer. But notice even from my own family, the millennials refuse to talk to their parents now out of spite because they felt abused. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different form of racism.
It is.
Right? It's like the child is now a race that's been mistreated and needs reparations.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear of children trying to sue their parents for for enforcing rules.
It's funny you say that. I was in a coffee shop here the other day, and I literally overheard a girl talking about that with her friends. How she took legal action against her parents for alleged abuse, which, from what I heard, just didn't happen. And she was talking about it so loudly. It's not like I was like, creeping or anything, but it's just like, man, I can't believe you're just talking about this so loudly in front of everyone. It's the weirdest thing. I hear I'm just trying to get some matcha.
It's this sociopathic, narcissistic thing.
Yeah.
That is just taken over because of social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like even when kids, people in general, even when you're talking to someone individually, it's almost like everybody's life has become a podcast.
Yeah, right? Everyone wants to be a vlogger now.
You don't even talk in the whatever person anymore. It's almost like your friends have become your audience, and they're gonna eventually give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. on I don't know, because you're posting your day on Facebook and your friends, I was there. I don't know. It's just I just don't want to be any part of this anymore. It's so bizarre.
It is an interesting place, that's for sure. But I think over time people will start to see the repercussions if they haven't already. Small portion of society will. The remnant, let's say.
You're gonna have to give it up. I mean, if it's ever going to be cured from alcohol. You have to give up the alcohol, right?
Yeah.
If you're gonna lose weight, you gotta give up some of the food. You gotta get rid of that which is causing the problem. And if you don't, then no, there will not be a cure because those in power will continue to use it against you. I mean, it's too brilliant of a tool not to control you with it, you know?
Yeah.
And boy, are we controlled by those phones, right? Just frightening when you watch people sometimes texting each other at the same table. I mean, what?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we saw that one girl. She was literally walking with her phone like this.
The kind that'll fall off a cliff and film it.
Well, thanks for joining, Clint. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.